So we are rebuilding the faces of unidentified people from their skull because these are usually like the last ditch attempts to identify somebody. Fingerprints didn't ID them, fingerprints, DNA, dental records, all that. So when all those, I don't like to say fail, but when those have not resulted in an ID, usually because there's not corresponding information in a database in order to match them, it's a pretty unusual job.
Yeah, that would imagine. Like, so is this something that happens a lot, or is this something that happens only in a few cases? Like, how prevalent is this?
I once did the numbers and it came out to like, I went online on a database and counted how many facial approximations there were compared to the unidentified. It was like maybe 10%.
So in about 10% of cases where somebody can't be identified, they'll bring in a facial sculptor.
So it's the last resort. It's a very niche field, very niche.
If you were to put a number on it, let's say 100% is the sculpture that you make looks exactly like a photograph of that person. How close would you say you usually get? Are we talking like 50%?
I've had a couple that were scary close, where the anthropologist and I looked at each other and we went, "Wow, like knock that one out of the park." That's not a normal. That's not a normal. It's hard to say because we'll see things like if somebody had a very rounded chin or they had, like I said, very wide set eyes or something about the face that they keyed off of. It can't look exactly like the person because we don't do hair color, eye color. Those are all unknowns because these are all skeletal remains. Um, I'm usually, I would say there's only one or two cases where I got an ID, like somebody saw it and it worked, where I looked at the approximation and went, like, I could have done a few things differently.
What would you say is like your success rate in the sense that like, okay, I did this many and of them, this many were found or this many people were identified?
You know what? I actually decided to look that up. I didn't always know how they came about. Like when you would see the case in the newspaper, it would say they were identified by DNA. Well, that doesn't mean that somebody didn't see it and call in a lead because facial approximations are not IDs.
I see what you're saying.
So
yeah.
The ID is with the DNA. So like my actual first hit was a bona fide hit. I remember where I was. I was out pumping gas, and a coworker called me and said, the anthropologist, the police called, and it was exactly that, what I said, that somebody was watching TV when the news came up, and I said, I think that might be my sister. And that was exactly how my first one happened. And I practically lost my mind because to me it was validation that I was doing things right.
What's the longest that someone has been missing and been identified?
I believe it was 37 years she was unidentified, and then she got ID'd. And the detective emailed me after I retired and told me. So I was pretty psyched about that. And I remembered the case. But I've seen them in the news like, maybe 50, 60 years, and that's usually going to be a DNA hit.
But they were almost always or always seemed to or appeared to be from like nefarious circumstances.
Most were. Yeah. I mean, you find a body buried in the desert in a plastic bag, even if they undetermined, you don't see the trauma. It's like, well,